Hi, friends. Today, with our ELA lesson, we're going to make a prediction, read a passage, and identify words and find new meanings, then compare and contrast animals and where they live. Let's get started. This is our reading passage. You can see the pictures and you can hear the title, A House for Me. So I want you to go ahead and take a second. You can pause me if you need more time. Go ahead and make a prediction about this passage. What do you think it might be about? Again, the title is A House for Me. Very good. Let's get reading. Let's see if you can listen very nicely. A house for me. A fish in a school, a squirrel in a tree, a barn for a mule. But what about me? A sheep in a pen, a whale in the sea, a bear in its den. But what about me? A sheep, a snake in a hole, a bird in a nest, a hole for a mole. But which one is best? A cave for a bat, a hive for a bee, a bed for a cat, and a house for me. Ooh, that was a nice little poem. Now, let's go ahead and think. Were there any words that you heard for the very first time or you're not quite sure what they mean? Go ahead and stop and think. You can pause me if you need to. Okay? Now, a word that you may have not heard before is a mule. A mule is another word for donkey. Okay? Let's see, another word that you might not know, den. A den is where a bear lives. It's kind of like a cave. And then I wonder, you probably know the rest of them, but just remember, how about mole? Do you know what a mole is? A mole is a tiny little animal that digs through the dirt and actually lives underground. So when it says a hole for mole, that's because a mole lives in a hole. Were there any other words that you weren't sure what they meant? Maybe you could go ahead and ask your caregiver if there was one that you're a little confused about. Remember, make sure you're assertive in your learning. Now, the next thing I want us to do is I want us to think about how a goldfish, or any type of fish, and a squirrel might be alike and how they might be different. So go ahead and pause me and have a little bit of think time. How is a fish and a squirrel alike or different? What do you think? Very good. Now, I know that these are two very different animals, right? A fish swims underwater. A squirrel lives on land. A fish eats bugs and little plant particles underwater, sometimes other fish. Squirrels eat a lot of nuts and other foods that they can find. I wonder what else. How else are they different? A fish has scales and a squirrel has fur. I bet there's a lot more differences that we could find. Now, try to think of how they are alike. How are they similar? They both eat food, right? They both have eyes. They both eat food. There are some ways that they are alike. So go ahead and take some time. Think about how they're different and how they're alike. That's how we compare and contrast. Now let's think about this one. How about a snake and a bumblebee? How are they different and how are they alike? I want you to try this one all on your own, okay? A snake and a bumblebee. Go ahead and think of how they're similar and alike and how they're different. Very good. And pause me, remember, when you need more time. Now, let's talk about where they live, okay? This is a cave or a den, like we were talking about with a bear. And then this is a barn, right? Like we would see on a farm. How are these two things alike and different? Go ahead and take some think time, and if you need to, pause me for more time. Very good. Now, if we were thinking about how they're the same or alike, animals can live in both places, can't they? That's for sure, right? How else are they alike? Both these things would keep the rain off of an animal, right? They're both shelters from the elements and from the weather, sometimes from warm and cold. Now, how are they different? Yeah, a cave is out in nature. It's naturally occurring, right? Unless somebody kind of carved it out. But a barn is something that somebody built for those animals to live in. Hmm. How else are they different? Hmm. I guess you could say that wild animals generally would live in a cave or in a den, but more domesticated animals or animals we would see on a farm or as pets could live in a barn. I think there's a lot more differences and similarities that we could definitely come up with. But I think you're on a good track. So thank you for doing that with me. Now, I just want you to be proud of yourself for making a prediction, identifying or learning new words, and then comparing and contrasting animals and where they live. Thank you for working with me, friends.